Beneath the cold blue waters of San Francisco Bay lies a jagged sliver of land that has defied time.
No one knows for sure what this island was used for hundreds of years ago, but Native American lore claims that it was a place of evil spirits.
Alcatraz, the Rock, the most infamous prison on Earth.
Alcatraz was the biggest concrete structure in the world, and supposedly the most secure prison on the planet.
Will there be tunnels?
You could say there was a tunnel.
Pretty much know what's above ground at Alcatraz Island.
But now a new study finds there are hidden buildings and tunnels underneath the prison yard.
In 2025, during the expansion of the museum area on Alcatraz Island, a team of engineers discovered a false wall hidden behind a thick layer of concrete. When drilling for inspection, they uncovered a steel underground passage leading deep into the ground. The FBI immediately sealed off the area, and all information was classified. Let's see what is truly being concealed beneath the cold stone of the island, once considered impenetrable. After breaking through the wall, a gap about half a meter wide was revealed. Inside was a fully constructed tunnel showing no signs of manual excavation. The steel structure surrounding it was solid, each metal plate stamped with serial numbers. These numbers were dated to the early 1920s, more than a decade before Alcatraz became a federal prison. At first, the engineers assumed it might be part of an abandoned technical infrastructure. When compared with all military blueprints of the United States from 1850 to the present, no plans recorded such a structure. This meant the tunnel had never been officially approved or documented in any official record. The inner steel surfaces still retained their anti-corrosion coating, indicating that the environment inside had remained dry and stable for a long period. There were no traces of insects, mold, or moisture, unlike the typically damp conditions of the island. Each tunnel segment was connected by industrial bolts, showing a professional assembly process and pre-designed structure. As the technical team advanced about 10 meters inside, they noticed the tunnel walls began to shift direction repeatedly. The passage twisted and turned, not aligning with any surface construction. This was believed to be intentional, designed to avoid detection from above or through ground mapping system. No lighting system or electrical wiring was found, only a few metal anchors along the walls, possibly used to secure equipment. The tunnel's width allowed an adult to move while crouched. The floor was covered with fine dust that appeared undisturbed, suggesting no human presence for decades. At the fourth section, the tunnel was blocked by a thick steel door welded shut in multiple layers. On its surface was an inscription reading WS-17, a marking never seen in any military or civilian code of that era. The welding was done using industrial techniques, not by hand or temporary means. The construction crew immediately halted all operations. A preliminary report was sent to the San Francisco city authorities, then transferred to the FBI. Within 24 hours, Alcatraz Island was placed under lockdown. Civilian workers were evacuated and replaced by a federal technical investigation team. When the welded layers on the door were cut open, cold air and iron dust poured out. Agents discovered another stretch of tunnel more than 20 meters long, descending about 4 meters deeper than the old prison foundation. This section was reinforced with I-beam steel frames, similar to the structures used in early 20th century military facilities. Inside were multiple signs that this was not a temporary construction. The floor was lined with flat steel plates, and the joints were riveted tightly, capable of bearing heavy loads. Some serial numbers on the rivets matched those found on military supply batches produced in California in 1921. When the entire tunnel route was scanned using ground-penetrating radar, the results showed it ran parallel beneath the D block, the section once used to house the most dangerous inmates. Its total length exceeded 70 meters, consisting of 3 main sections and a collapsed branch. The layout did not correspond with any sewer conduit or electrical infrastructure. Near the entrance, a small metal plaque was found attached to the ceiling. It bore the faint inscription, "Property of U.S. Department, 1924." This phrase caught the FBI's attention, since Alcatraz was still a military facility, at that time not converted into a federal prison. This suggested the structure could have belonged to a secret experimental or defensive program predating 1934. The FBI collected samples of steel dust and paint for analysis. Preliminary results showed the alloy contained a high nickel content consistent with military-grade materials from the 1920s. The extremely low corrosion levels proved the area had been perfectly sealed from the island's humidity. After 3 days of investigation, the experts completed a 3D map of the entire tunnel. The diagram revealed a carefully planned structure with multiple strategic turns resembling an underground defense network. Based on this data, the FBI concluded it was an artificial construction with a specific purpose impossible to have been built by prisoners or maintenance teams. All data and images were classified. The media was denied access, and related news reports were removed within hours. A special FBI technical unit continued probing the tunnel's far end, where radar readings indicated a large, unopened space. As the light beams illuminated the interior, they saw a chamber built with military precision entirely distinct from the preceding tunnel sections. This structure opened a new direction for the entire investigation. The Forgotten Command Center. The room measured about 10 square meters with a low ceiling and steel lining covering all surfaces. There were no windows, no air ducts, and no external electrical wiring. The steel walls were more than 3 centimeters thick, suggesting this had once been a high-pressure area or was designed to be blast-resistant. On the floor stood 3 military folding beds neatly arranged in a row. The blankets and sheets still kept their crisp folds, as if prepared according to regulation. Under the beds were oak storage boxes containing protective clothing and old leather boots, all bearing manufacturing labels from the 1950s. On the opposite wall, agents found a metal desk, covered with a thick layer of dust, though traces of objects that once rested there were still visible. An early-generation military radio model PRC-6 was discovered, along with a coiled headset and a rusted antenna. Next to the radio lay a hand-drawn map of the San Francisco Bay, marked with intersections of tidal currents. The annotations were written in red and black ink, clearly tactical notes. The map's edges were reinforced with old paper tape, indicating it had been used for an extended period. 2 mechanical clocks mounted on the wall had stopped at the exact same time, 2:17 a.m. Whether caused by a power cutoff or intentional stoppage remained unclear, but both clock faces were intact, their hands unbroken. This detail drew particular attention when the investigation team made its initial report. Near the corner of the room, a metal file box was found on the floor. Inside were yellowed documents, mostly technical drawings and character code sheets. Among the papers lay a small brass device identified as a mechanical encryption tool similar to those used by the CIA in the late 1950s. The agents recorded no fingerprints or DNA matching any known prisoner or staff member who had ever been present at Alcatraz. The surfaces of all objects had been carefully wiped before being sealed. There were no signs of long-term habitation, such as waste food remnants or traces of heat. Analysis of the building materials showed the wall coating contained a lead compound, typical of the 1930-1960 period. The steel welds were made with advanced techniques meeting military standards. A structure of this precision could not have been built by inmates or ordinary maintenance workers. When inspecting the ceiling, the technical team discovered a small circular hole that had been welded shut. It measured about 5 centimeters across and was likely once a connection port for ventilation or radio wiring. The weld marks were newer than the rest of the structure, suggesting someone had sealed the area after the facility ceased operation. In another corner of the room, a small safe was embedded in the wall. Its surface showed slight corrosion, and the lock remained intact. Inside was only a metal tag engraved with the words WS Unit 2 and a damaged magnetic tape reel. Analysis indicated the tape was manufactured around 1960, the type used for recording data. When examining the eastern wall, they found an old scorched electronic control panel. Faint markings remained, including the inscription COMSEC. This was short for Communication Security, a term used for information protection systems of U.S. intelligence agencies. The room was thick with dust, but showed no signs of mold. Air analysis revealed extremely low oxygen levels, indicating the space had been sealed for decades, possibly more than 60 years. Everything inside was preserved almost exactly as it had been at the time of closure. When cross-referencing the clock time with Alcatraz incident records, the FBI noted that 2:17 a.m. did not correspond to any documented event during the prison's operational years. This timestamp became the only reference point for dating the room's last period of activity. The findings led investigators to conclude that the room had likely served as a secret information coordination center operating in parallel with the surveillance systems above. The presence of encryption devices and radio equipment supported the theory that this was an underground intelligence facility rather than a detention area. From a technical standpoint, the room was designed to operate independently without reliance on the prison's main power supply. The scorch marks on the control panel might have resulted from a self-destruct circuit triggered at the end of a mission, a procedure often used in highly classified projects. The FBI secured all recovered items, sealed them, and transported the evidence to the Quantico laboratory. Alcatraz remained under full lockdown, with access limited to federal investigators, and all collected materials were designated top secret. Internal reports noted that agents experienced an unusual sense of stillness inside the sealed room, as if the space had been abandoned in a controlled and orderly manner. Laboratory analysis found microbial traces consistent with a long-term enclosed environment. No signs of external contamination appeared after 1963, confirming that the chamber was sealed before or at the exact time Alcatraz ended its official operations. From that discovery, the investigation files began to reveal a connection between this hidden room and a top-secret U.S. government program during the Cold War era. National-level classified program. The recurring WS markings throughout the tunnel led the investigation team to search archival records from the Department of Justice and the CIA. In a declassified 1978 repository, they located a thin file labeled Project Warden's Shadow, assigned the highest security level and restricted to internal circulation. Alcatraz was viewed as an ideal site. Its isolation from the mainland, rugged terrain, and position inside a naval control zone supported covert activity. The prison's strict environment allowed unusual operations to blend into routine procedures. The reports indicated that the project operated with a self-contained budget. Funding moved through classified defense accounts, with transactions recorded under numerical identifiers and no mention of an executing agency. This system explained the long silence surrounding its existence. According to the documents, the tunnel beneath Alcatraz was constructed between 1922 and 1924, when the island still functioned as a military installation. The initial goal may have involved creating an underground communication corridor or an emergency shelter. When the federal prison opened in 1934, existing structures were repurposed for new objectives. Radio equipment, title charts, and encryption tools found in the recovered chamber aligned with communication systems used in early Cold War intelligence programs. An appendix from a 1959 file classified Alcatraz as Zone WS2, associated with studies of human endurance under isolation. That label matched the inscription on the metal tag discovered inside the safe. The declassified records did not list names of participants, only coded identifiers appeared. Cross-referencing inmate timetables created the possibility that well-known prisoners, including Frank Morris, had been indirectly used as subjects. No document confirmed that experiments occurred inside the tunnel, though the existence of a fully sealed facility made such use plausible. The enclosed chamber may have supported observation or coordination tasks. Photographs inside the Warden's shadow file, dated to 1957, showed personnel in non-military uniforms standing before a door labeled WS1. The architecture and steel flooring in the image matched the structure beneath Alcatraz with striking precision. FBI analysts found correlations between the project's activity period and several temporary disappearances in historic inmate records. Those entries were later removed or rewritten as transferred with no destination noted. None of the official security reports from 1934 to 1963 mentioned tunnel construction or maintenance. The presence of materials produced through the early 1960s showed that the site remained active until the prison closed. An internal memorandum from 1970 stated, "All WS assets are sealed. Site deemed non-operational." The condition of the tunnel supported this statement. Equipment remained intact, the entrance had been welded shut, and no signs of forced closure appeared, indicating an orderly shutdown. The FBI evaluated whether the tunnel served as an escape route for intelligence officers or protected witnesses. Structural analysis made that scenario unlikely. The most consistent interpretation was that the site functioned as a secret psychological research facility. The consolidated report concluded that Warden's shadow belonged to a group of classified intelligence programs focused on monitoring subjects in isolation known only to a limited circle of officials. What surfaced in the collapsed chamber was not merely evidence of a hidden project, but the final trace of a person left behind in the darkness beneath Alcatraz. The final message: the technicians used water pumps and lighting tubes to access the deeper section of the tunnel. After more than 4 hours of removing debris, a second steel structure emerged, a cylindrical chamber tilted and half buried under layers of earth and rock. Near its edge, the team found a human figure in a slumped sitting position. The body had fully decomposed, leaving a nearly complete skeleton. The right hand still gripped a dark brown leather briefcase with a torn strap and a corroded lock. Under the industrial lights, the sight caused the entire field team to freeze for several seconds in absolute silence. Forensic specialists inspected the remains after moving them to a dry platform. The bones belonged to an adult male, approximately 1.78 meters tall. The skeletal frame showed no fractures or traumatic damage. The posture suggested the man died in a calm state without signs of struggle or an attempt to escape the chamber. The leather briefcase was opened with care. Inside were 3 intact items: a small cloth pouch containing coins, minted in 1961, a waterproof hand-drawn map of the San Francisco Bay Area, and a torn sheet bearing faded handwriting. Only a few unclear characters remained legible. Behind the spot where the skeleton was located, faint scratch marks appeared on the steel wall. Under angled lighting, a carved sentence became visible: "They left me here." The grooves were deep and uneven, showing the inscription had been made with poor lighting and in a state of exhaustion. Investigators compared the bone samples with biometric records of all Alcatraz inmates from 1934 to 1963. The results did not match any known identity. DNA tests also showed no connection to Frank Morris or the Anglin brothers, the 3 men linked to the 1962 escape. The items inside the briefcase were analyzed further. The waterproof map displayed a route leading north off the island, ending near an underground tunnel area. Ink tests linked the markings to military office pens from the early 1960s. The coins remained bright and free of oxidation, which indicated long-term protection inside an airtight environment, isolated from sea air. Dust samples from the bones showed a sealed, undisturbed chamber with no external intrusion since the time of death. There were no signs of violence or mechanical damage. The cause of death was identified as oxygen deprivation in a confined space consistent with a tunnel that had been welded shut from the outside. The FBI collected all evidence, sealed the findings, and withheld any official identification. A short preliminary note stated, "Subject deceased before facility closure. No further identification." All photographs were classified and removed from public access. Personnel who assisted in the internal investigation were reassigned. Data related to the final section of the tunnel was erased from civilian systems, leaving only a summary entry, acknowledging the discovery of an unidentified human body within a sealed tunnel area. The tunnel was re-welded and permanently blocked. Authorities issued a public explanation citing structural safety for the closure. No further excavation or study was announced. Independent researchers proposed multiple theories in the years that followed. Some believed the skeleton represented the last trace of a hidden intelligence program. Others claimed the man was connected to the 1962 escape and eliminated to prevent exposure of sensitive information. No definitive evidence supported any theory. The DNA fragments, the preserved items, and the carved message remained the only clues. All independent studies were stopped when the FBI restricted access within a 200-meter radius of the tunnel zone. The discovery concluded an investigation that lasted several months. The federal report remained sealed, and all personnel signed permanent confidentiality agreements. To this day, the man's identity and purpose inside the chamber remain locked within classified archives. His connection to the rumored Warden's shadow system has never been confirmed. Beneath the stone foundations of Alcatraz lies a sealed room holding a map, a message, and a death with no explanation. If you wish to continue uncovering the buried secrets of legendary locations, subscribe to the channel, click like, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next episode.